There were giants on the earth in those days. This single, electrifying phrase from Genesis chapter 6 has ignited the imaginations and fueled the debates of scholars, theologians, and mystery seekers for millennia. It speaks of a time before the Great Flood, an ancient, violent world populated by enigmatic beings known as the Nephilim. The Bible says they were the offspring of a mysterious and forbidden union between the sons of God and the daughters of men. They were the mighty men of old, men of renown. But who were they, really? This is the true, mysterious, and for some, terrifying story of the Nephilim. The stakes of this mystery are profound. Understanding the Nephilim is key to understanding the sheer wickedness of the pre-flood world and the divine reasoning behind God's decision to cleanse the earth with a cataclysmic flood. Were these giants fallen angels in physical form? Were they a monstrous hybrid race, part divine and part human? Or is there another, less sensational explanation? We are about to investigate one of the most debated and controversial passages in the entire Bible, examining the ancient Hebrew text, exploring historical interpretations, and diving into the theological implications to uncover the truth about these shadowy giant figures from the dawn of time. Imagine a primordial world, a world closer to the perfection of Eden, but already deeply corrupted by evil. In this world walked beings of immense power and stature, a source of both awe and terror. The story of the Nephilim is the story of a world spiraling into a darkness so profound that it required a divine reset. The biblical account is brief and shrouded in mystery. Genesis 6, 1-4 reads, "When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose." The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of men and had children by them. The key to this passage is identifying the two groups, the sons of God and the daughters of men. There are three major interpretations. The first, and historically most common interpretation among ancient Jewish and early Christian writers, is that the sons of God were fallen angels. Proponents of this view argue that this term, Bene Elohim in Hebrew, is used elsewhere in the Old Testament, like in the book of Job, to refer to angelic heavenly beings. In this view, a group of rebellious angels, in a profound act of cosmic perversion, took on physical forms, lusted after human women, and procreated with them. The resulting offspring, the Nephilim, were a monstrous hybrid race, unnaturally powerful, violent, and wicked. This angelic interpretation explains the extreme nature of the sin that led to the flood. It wasn't just human wickedness. It was a corruption of the very genetic code of humanity, a blending of the heavenly and earthly realms that was an abomination to God. This view is supported by non-biblical ancient texts like the Book of Enoch, which elaborates on this story in great detail. The atmosphere of this interpretation is one of cosmic horror, a demonic invasion that threatened to corrupt the human lineage through which the promised Messiah was to come. A second interpretation, which became more popular after St. Augustine, is the Sethite view. In this interpretation, the sons of God were not angels, but the righteous descendants of Adam's son Seth. The daughters of men, in contrast, were the ungodly descendants of the murderous Cain. The sin, therefore, was not a supernatural hybridization, but a spiritual one. It was the holy seed of the righteous line intermarrying with the ungodly line, leading to a complete apostasy and corruption of the faithful remnant on earth. The Nephilim, in this view, were not semi-divine hybrids, but simply powerful, tyrannical human leaders who were born from these unholy unions. This interpretation avoids the theological difficulties of angels procreating, but some argue it doesn't fully capture the extreme gravity of the situation described in the text. The third interpretation is that the sons of God were powerful human rulers or kings from noble or royal lines who, in their arrogance, began to act like gods. They took whichever women they wanted, creating harems and engaging in rampant polygamy and oppression. Their offspring, the Nephilim, were a class of warrior princes, the mighty men of old, whose violence and tyranny filled the earth. This view sees the story as a polemic against the pagan kings of the ancient Near East, who often claimed divine status. The word Nephilim itself is a source of debate. It comes from the Hebrew root naphal, which means to fall. Thus, Nephilim can be translated as the fallen ones. This could support the fallen angel theory. However, it could also be interpreted as those who fall upon others, meaning they were violent aggressors, like attackers or bandits, which would fit the tyrannical human view. The story of the Nephilim doesn't end with the flood. The text intriguingly states they were on the earth in those days, and also afterward. Later in the book of Numbers, when the Israelite spies scout out the promised land of Canaan, they return with a terrified report. "We saw the Nephilim there. The descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them." Goliath, the giant Philistine warrior defeated by David, was likely a descendant of these remnants. This suggests that the genetic trait of giantism, introduced by the Nephilim, may have survived the flood, possibly through the wife of one of Noah's sons. Regardless of which specific interpretation you hold, the theological takeaway is a powerful warning. The story of the Nephilim is a story of the terrible consequences of blurring the sacred boundaries established by God. Whether it was the boundary between the angelic and human realms, the boundary between the righteous and the ungodly, or the boundary between divine authority and human tyranny, the violation of these boundaries led to a world so filled with violence and corruption that it had to be destroyed. The Nephilim represent a cautionary tale about the dangers of forbidden unions and the arrogant human or angelic attempt to seize power and create a world in our own image, rather than in God's. They are a shadowy, mysterious, and terrifying reminder of the darkness that preceded the flood, and the profound holiness of the God who, even in judgment, made a way for humanity's survival and ultimate redemption through the Ark of Noah. The giants of Genesis may be long gone, but the temptation to cross the boundaries God has set remains as real as ever. If the deep and often strange mysteries of the ancient world captivate you, consider following for more investigations into the Bible's most enigmatic stories.